We are live.
Okay, so we have our code of conduct public hearing, and who's presenting on that? Is that Fred's doing that, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yep. Should we just start?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to try to present my screen. You guys see that okay?
Yep.
All right, awesome. All right, so as part of, first of all, good evening, everyone. As part of the requirements for the adoption of our code of conduct, we need to have a public hearing, which we're doing right now. Ms. Starr sent out the code of conduct with the agenda, and as of yet, we haven't received any requests for comments, but that doesn't mean we don't want the public to comment. So please feel free. I'll have my contact information at the end. Feel free to call or email me with any questions or thoughts. So the presentation tonight is a 36-page document. We are not going to go deep into it. We're going to do some quick highlights for the board. And then this first page, when we send it out, you'll see that there's this hyperlink right there as well that brings you to the code of conduct, the full 36 pages. So here's a list of the members of the subcommittee. This was a subcommittee of the district leadership team. We'll get into the timeline a little bit, but as you can see, we have quite a few folks represented here. Miss Siegel Salhoff was the only parent, but many of us did dual responsibilities as parents as well. So here's the timeline and process. It's hard to believe that we've been working on this for almost 2 years. As I mentioned, it's a 36-page document, which was a huge undertaking. And I just want to begin this by saying a huge thank you to all of the members who assisted, because the persistence really paid off. I think we have a really good product here that, other than annual tweaks, will live with us for a long time. So with many of our committees, we start with the why, the purpose around this. And so we started to really look at the why. Why do we need to revise our code of conduct, which we'll get into a little bit more. We started looking into and investigating other code of conducts, not only regionally, but even across the nation on ones that were kind of along the same lines as our purpose. And then we really started having those nitty-gritty conversations around specific areas of concern. Back in 2019, before we went out for the pandemic, vaping and the use of non-regulated electronic devices were the biggest things on our radar. When we reconvened in the fall, we had different discussions around tech. So things had changed a little bit. As we started to wrap this up, we brought our attorney, Mr. Malahi, into the conversation as well, just to make sure we were following all of the current policy and law. So this is called a Wordle. It's just a graphic representation of our purpose. We took our conversation and created this. And as you can see, the school community piece of this is at the forefront of everyone's mind when constructing a code of conduct. The team felt that this was really going to be a tool that served the full school community to make sure that we're really outlining clear and consistent rules and expectations. You'll see where the expectations word is highlighted, which means it was stated a lot. So we not only wanted to define the expectations for behavior, but also the expectations for students, staff, and the community in responding to that behavior. So that's what this 36-page document has. It has a lot of not only consequences, but also other responses to help support positive behavior and to create a school community that's going to foster not only learning holistically, but then individual students' self-regulation and personal responsibility. So a little bit more about the purpose. It kind of went with our task. We jumped in, most of us want a checklist of things that we're going to do. So we created this kind of checklist on the things that we wanted with this code of conduct. And we knew we wanted to add a learning component. So it wasn't just a list of consequences, but there was a learning portion to this as well. Anyone who has coached knows that you can tell someone they're doing something wrong, but it's when you not only tell them they're doing something wrong, but then also demonstrate and show them the correct way of doing something that they really learn effectively. So we wanted to add that learning component. Additionally, we wanted to make sure that there was consistent responses between buildings, classrooms, K-12. We wanted to make sure that not only did we have responsive actions, but even when it came to consequences, we saw some inconsistencies. We wanted to create that consistency. We've been talking for the last couple of years around multi-tiered systems of support, so we wanted to make sure that our code of conduct followed that as well. So part of our task was making sure that, as I mentioned, there was an alignment pre-K to 12, that we really did eliminate some of the conflicts that we saw in student handbooks and other building-specific codes. So our charge was really to try to create something that was useful. We don't want this to just now go on a shelf and not be looked at, but we want to make sure that it is something that we bring out regularly. We obviously would utilize a lot of this for regular, discipline issues, but then also a lot of philosophical and responsive actions would go with this as well. And we're gonna, I'll go over some of the training that's gonna come with this. So I don't want to go over all of the things I've already talked about. So I'll just let you look at this. And just the one thing I wanted to point out is that Ms. Hills-Burns and Mr. Engel will probably be thrilled that we're adding a lot of our policies to this. So we're actually highlighting, and I'll show you an example of that, our policies within this. So they're not disjointed. We're trying to create everything in one spot around that. One of the things that the team was really excited about was this table that we created, actually borrowed, and then we tweaked, so to be honest. So we wanted to make sure that there was those consistent responses. And if you look through, for those of you who have the code of conduct, I think it's on page 20, this table begins. And what the committee found useful about it was that it discussed really the definitions for behaviors. So you'll see that too in the left column. And then it brings consistency to consequences, but there's also, like many code of conducts, it also allows there to be a progressive approach to discipline. So you'll see, like in that first one, there's a level 1, 2, 3, or 4, which allows for an administrator to take into account the child's age, the severity of an incident, and the frequency of the behavior. So level 1 is really those universal school and classroom practices. So for those of you who are elementary teachers, if you had to take because you did something incorrectly and you have to take your clip to the next level, that's something that's taken care of in the classroom. It's something that may have been taught within the building. So that's more of a level 1 response. A level 2 warrants a little bit more of a focused approach. So that might be something like the traditional detention or some sort of lunch bunch or group where we're getting together to discuss a little bit more. It could be a family meeting, something more than just an email or a phone call home. Level 3s and level 4 responses are those that become more significant. In addition to a more serious consequence, these behaviors may lead to something that's a bit more personalized and ongoing, like a behavior plan or some sort of outside agency support. As I mentioned, we included a lot of our board policy and also law within this. So we wanted to make sure that due process was in our document. We wanted to make sure that all of those concerns around games, other things that happen on school property were also captured within this as well, so that we could really utilize this as a resource. So we are going to continue to take the show on the road with this. Our first stop was here at the board level with this presentation tonight. We've already sent this to not only our district leadership team, as I mentioned, we were the subcommittee, so they needed to really have eyes on this. We sent this to our building leadership teams as well. We have a professional development in March that we're going to allow some time for folks to be able to dig a little bit deeper into this. And then we're creating sessions for both families and students to give them the information around this as well. With everything kind of being housed on our website, we want to think creatively about maybe doing some sort of handout in the beginning of the year that really pushes traffic towards our website to be able to utilize this and see it as a resource. So we are still going to get together to discuss timeline and then also an annual review and what that dissemination kind of looks like. One of the next big steps is to really look at our athletic code of conduct as well. In our current code of conduct that I presented on tonight, there was a mention of the athletic code of conduct. We decided not to change it at this point. Mr. Dorrance, Mr. Malahi, and various coaches, teachers, and community members were looking to come together and revise that as well. So I'll just leave this up for a second. Again, a huge thank you to the team. I mean, it was a labor. It was a long time, and I think it's a product that we're going to be using for quite a while. Any questions from the board? Did Mr. McFerrin time me? Did I do okay? Okay.
I'm sorry, I nodded off.
Yeah.
I'm just
Fred,
joking.
did you say that this is already posted on our website for review, or is this, so this is the first time it's being discussed?
In public, yes. It's been discussed at our building leadership teams, at building levels. The reps from the committees brought it back to their constituent groups, but this is the first time that we're discussing in a larger public setting.
And this would be different than our traditional like listing of a policy and then a review period, right? This is something we can go straight to publication?
Correct.
Okay.
Is this something that we vote on, or is this just something that goes right?
No, it's just a public hearing
Gotcha.
for the public, everybody that's watching, to
Gotcha.
understand what we're working on.
But there is a motion for it later on in the evening, correct? To accept this?
I don't know.
I would rely upon Sue for that information.
Yes,
I have it
Yes,
circled
there
as
is.
6.8.
yes, it is
You
there.
got it, 6.8. Okay. So if we have no other questions as far as this code of conduct hearing, we are going to need a motion to move to executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or persons. So to have Mr. McFerrin, Mrs. Burns, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are back in exec. And Joanne, let me know when we're good to go.
I will let you know.